I was loitering outside in one of the events, and I overheard somebody offering this interesting little capsule summary of what this session was going to be about. It was somebody who said, yeah, you know, Shirky invented the internet and Franzen wants to shut it down. I don't need the New Yorker's fact-checking department to tell you that is not true. Maybe a little true, but we'll see. Jonathan Franzen on my left, who is well known as one of the most powerful novelists of our era, whose last novel is called Freedom, and I think the confusion with the internet blocking service Freedom created certain confusions. Has written a has just published a book devoted to the 1920s Viennese media critic Karl Kraus. This book, which is also available in this format. Sorry, John. One gets the impression reading that book that that Kraus would have come down on another of these ongoing issues, which is PC or Mac. One gets the strong impression that Kraus would have been PC. I wonder if you could elaborate a bit about that, John.
Well, in the first essay in this book, he is taking a look at a modern style of journalism that seems to me, to him, to be neither literature nor journalism. It has sort of the defects of both and the virtues of neither. And particularly the way he sets up the formulation, you have German functionality and then you have Romance culture's aestheticism. And he comes down firmly, this is the reason why he might have been a PC user, he comes down firmly on the side of the Germans because he said, you know, when I'm sitting down to work, I don't want something to be beautiful, I want it to be useful. I'm trying to create beauty, I just want the machine to disappear. And I think more broadly, I think he resisted what we now call the notion of cool, that simply having this technology somehow confers coolness on you. And it has reached the point where cool is no longer anything but a word for selling technology. We've had to sort of bring back words like hip because cool has been so totally co-opted by cool technologies.
Now, Clay, you are, in addition to being a member of both the arts faculty at NYU and the journalism faculty at NYU, also someone who has been referred to as a web guru. And I don't know whether that's a compliment or an insult or how that was intended. Right. But presumably you, over the years, have also evolved views on this ancient PC versus Mac debate.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was funny reading because the first footnote of the Kraus project goes into the PC versus Mac dispute and talks in particular about the "I'm a Mac, I'm a PC" ad with Justin Long and Hodgman, John Hodgman. And I was reminded of reading that of Baudrillard's observation that in America all consumption is consumption of advertising. My experience of the actual devices, and I use a lot of different machines. I've got a Chrome OS machine at work and a Mac at home. My kids use Macs. Is that the hardware isn't the same as the ads, and just trying to piece through the choices made by Apple's marketing department versus the choices made by Apple's engineering department. They have a really good engineering department. The ad was so terrible that it's pretty obvious they don't have such a great marketing department. And in fact, John, exactly as you said, a lot of people objected to that ad, and it's one of the things that made Hodgman famous is that, you know, cast as the eternal foil, he comes across better.
And I believe there was a story, I believe I read this in the New Yorker, that you know, Jobs was trying to reduce the number of keys on the keyboard. Right. And the lack of function keys, of course, is famous, and I like those function keys even now.
Is there a US-Europe distinction?
Well, the interesting thing about the U.S.-Europe distinction, and Jonathan links up the PC and the Mac with French and German culture, but the French and Germans are both overwhelmingly PC people, right? To the 90th percentile, both countries buy PCs instead of Macs. There's I think a 2% difference between the two. So in a way, it's again this distinction between the real technology choices people make on the ground, where you can't find any daylight between the French and the Germans in terms of their choices, versus a sense of what constitutes cool. And I mean, I think this may be a thing that the internet does. I don't think we could identify a sense of cool in the larger society, right? If you go into the electronic dance music scene, which I don't often do, but we're one to do such a thing, it's pretty clear that the Germans are coming way out on top.
Right.
Right? Deadmau5 is not using the French spelling of mouse to create his stage name, and so it's I mean I think this plurality is one of the things that makes talking about the internet and culture hard. It's just less obvious that there is a mainstream about cool or anything else to which you can ascribe these kinds of virtues. You need three things to be a good writer. You need to read a lot. There are millions of people who do that. You need to write a lot. There are fewer of those, but still millions. And you need a lot of feedback. And up until now, thing three, you almost had to get a contract for. Thing three, the feedback loop was professionalized. You couldn't show your writing to anybody other than the people in the world most likely to tell you that it was fine, until you sent it to an editor and got a rejection slip or whatever. And now we have a generation of writers who are used to feedback before they're out of high school. And when you look at, I don't know, Sadie Doyle, Laurie Penny, these people whose careers just slid from their own personal expression on weblogs that they created and ran into the mainstream press, it seems to me that in particular the spread of the feedback loop about the quality of writing, and this is maybe where I'm most worried about your dislike of Twitter. It seems to me the feedback loop around the quality of writing is this profoundly good new thing in the world of ladders.
The young writers I know who are trying to make it report a tremendous amount of pressure to have followers on Twitter, to have Facebook friends. And in fact, when hears agents won't even look at young people, there are agents who won't even look at your manuscript. It doesn't matter what the merits of the proposal or the writing. They won't even look at it unless you can report that you have X number of followers. They report that basically they feel like they need to be self-promoting all the time, and they need to be getting their name out there. Everyone is telling them, get your name out there, get your name out there, get the feedback, get the feedback. And the result is that the complaint is that they spend a lot of time writing for no money, and actually doing pretty much the opposite of what they might want to be doing, which is going in, being alone, developing a voice, actually without regard to feedback. That's why I said maybe. I mean, feedback can be good, but it's one of the reasons I didn't want to go to writing school is I didn't actually care what other people said because I was trying to do something, and I felt that it would actually be vitiating to get too much response because I'd be pulled in a million different directions, and that the result would be to sort of homogenize what I was trying to do. So again, this is. I'm uncomfortable with having been painted as some foe of technology and foe of modern technology because I use it constantly, and I also, technology through the ages, it's been good for culture. The flying buttress gave us sharp. It's really good.
If I wanted to make the most grandiose claim I could make for the internet, I would say things are becoming more networked in the same way that things became more prosaic between 1500 and 1800. When you look at Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, these kinds of shows, they defeat even the French's attempt to keep the novel at the center of interpretation with auteur theory. Like, okay, movies are fine, but as long as we can still pretend that there's one voice, it's okay to think about movies. Vince Gilligan or David Chase, clearly central figures in the production of these works of art, but the production of the kind of, the golden age of episodic TV that we're seeing is clearly more networked in a way that isn't down to what the internet provides, but there does seem to be something in the air about creative production. And it may be that if you want the Faulkners of the world to have a space carved out, you find yourself every day wading against this tide.